all the boxes are checked. You hit what you think is the next level or the mountaintop.
Right.
And then when you get to the mountaintop, you find out that it is not all that you think it is.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace our marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and welcome to another episode of this podcast. I'm here at Hi Hello Labs in downtown Orlando in this beautiful studio space, and I added a little greenery in the back. And I really just love this space, the people here that help and facilitate everything that goes down in all the production, audio, video needs that I have. So if you need any of that, make sure to reach out to them and they can start you out. And also make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. All of that helps to grow this community. And also, I love to hear your guys' feedback. In this week's episode, I have a very special guest, and in continuation of the topics that we have been talking about when it comes to mental health, personal growth, and our trauma healing work journey. And so today I have on the podcast the Marcelins. Savillon Marcelin. How are you guys?
The Marcelins. Hey, how you doing?
Well, Savillon.
Stephanie.
Yes. Yes. And Jun Marcelin. How are you guys? Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having us. Honestly, it is a pleasure to be here. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I'm doing good as well. This is amazing what you're doing, and I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Thank you. I know that we usually have done these in audio. So like the last one, I was like listening to it. I'm like, we did one where we talked about like the unpopular opinions, and then Rain was in the background and she was like
having her own conversation.
Yeah, she was having her own conversation. And then we've done like a sister one and then the guy's perspective. And so I really value your guys' opinions and your guys' experience. I mean, we have these conversations a lot, and sometimes you get annoyed because why do you get annoyed that we have these deep conversations like when we were watching the show? And then
Okay. For the viewers and listeners, the reason why, let me give her full context before she paints this narrative. I'm trying to watch a show, and I love my wife, and I love my sister, but they try to have these conversations while I'm watching the show. It's like, let's wait for the episode to end.
No.
To have these conversations, but they will talk through a movie, they will talk through a show, and I kind of knew that like when I first got into a relationship. I was like, oh, y'all don't stop. Y'all just continue this thing.
We have a lot to say.
Yeah.
We do. At least the conversations that we have, we're breaking down like the behavior. We're breaking down like their pattern of thinking. We're going into like this whole like analysis.
That's great, but we could break it down after the show.
But it's
not
good
while
to
watching
see it
it.
play out in real life.
Yeah.
You know?
So the show that we were watching was
Succession.
Yeah. And so on HBO, like just like hearing about the family dynamics, we relate a lot to that. And so we're like, okay, what are the characters that we love? Who are the characters that we would...
While I'm watching the show, y'all.
How has the character evolved?
Like,
yeah,
we're like, wow, I love the growth. Or it's like, actually, no, she needs to go to therapy. She has a lot of...
And don't let them see a movie before you. They will spoil it.
Oh my God.
They will talk about it.
It's because he falls asleep in half of the movies. So because of that, we all watch them. And then he has thoughts to say after we're already there and watching it. And so that was like what happened with Barbie. No, let's name a few. It happened with like Barbie.
No, I watched Barbie with her.
But I watched it first.
I didn't fall asleep.
And then Kat watched it. And then you're like, no, wait.
But y'all try to describe the whole movie, and I haven't watched it yet. So it's like, they do everything but like spoil it. Y'all are like that close.
It's because you should watch the movie. There's a
go ahead, spoil it for those who haven't watched it. Go ahead.
No. The thing is, you have to watch a movie within the week. If you don't watch it within the week, then I'm sorry, it's too bad. I already watched it. It launches if the premiere's on Thursday, and I'm gonna watch it that weekend. So if you have a week to watch it before I spoil it.
So we gotta find a babysitter. We gotta do all that. But if we can't do that in a week, that's our fault. I got it. Cool.
Anywho's, we definitely have interesting dynamics, but you know, we all get along. Peace and love over here.
It's all peace and love.
For sure.
Yeah. So I know that you guys are in the season of Parenthood.
Yes.
And so how has that been evolving through since the last time we talked?
Well, I think the last time Rain was about to turn 1.
Yeah.
And now I feel like we're just like months away from her turning 2, which is crazy. It's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful journey, not only in like being part of someone's childhood now. It's just like as we grow up, we think back to those moments that help shape who we are. And I think that responsibility just continues to weigh more heavily as she, is just growing and coming into herself and her personality and all of that. So it's beautiful. And then just continually like looking at myself and areas that I need to improve or things that I need to get better in. Or even moments of like reflecting that, wow, I've come far. This actually doesn't bother me like I thought it would. Is great, So
yeah, for me it's been great. I'm right now in a season where I'm with her a lot more, being at home with her, and so for me it's been a joy. It comes with its challenges, obviously. We were just talking about how like we see a lot of our characteristics in her, and she is very strong-willed, which is signs of leadership. But sometimes it can be a little bit challenging because she like moves to the beat of her own drums. But overall, it has been a great experience for me. Fatherhood journey has been great, and just being able to learn more about myself and areas that I need to grow in. And I don't know, it's just like there's so much more compassion now that I had that I, prior I did not, that I thought I did. And so, but it's been great. Like I love her. That's my twin. So yeah.
She is. But she's like a mix of both of you guys.
For sure. Yeah.
But I just feel like she's just her own character.
Yes.
And it's just like she has so much sass and so much personality that has come up. And she talks so much. Like she tells you what she wants. And she is opinionated and she can play. Like, I feel like she plays by herself now, which is cute.
She's like in the imaginative, play, like, period of life. And
she's just picky with the food, which is normal.
Yeah, it's a normal phase.
Yeah, so she's in that toddler phase.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So how have you guys been able to navigate like through your own journey? Because I know I talked about healing trauma through like dating and singleness. So you guys are even on your guys' podcast when you guys were doing it, which we need you guys to come back again.
Stay tuned.
So I know you guys would talk a lot about relationships and kind of like how important it is to be like healthy, like individually and all of that. So how has parenthood challenged you like with your mental health and like you being okay? How has that looked like in this season?
I think for me, the word that comes to mind when I think about parenthood is sacrifice. And one of the things that we say is that, the days sometimes can be long, but the years go by fast. Like she's about to be 2. And it feels like it happens so quickly. And so for me, what I've learned is that I need to create time for me so that I can be a better husband to Steph as well as a better father to her. And so what that looks like for me is trying to be intentional with having that time for myself. And so that if that requires waking up a little bit earlier, a couple of hours earlier to make sure that I'm reading, that I'm having my time of meditation and devotion to be able to set the day. Because it's like once she wakes up, it's all about her and what she wants to do. And so if I'm waking up at the same time as her, I'm already like fighting back. Like I'm like fighting up. I'm going fighting to go uphill. And so I try to make sure that I'm up before her, do those things that I need to do for me to be able to be the best version of myself for her because she deserves that. And so I think some activities also as well that we've kind of been doing with her, whether it be, the library or a little, not going to name the place, but, just different things like that. Just different extracurricular activities has been very helpful. So,
The transition, from when she first arrived to where we found ourselves at that moment in time, I think definitely was not things that I was necessarily prepared for. So when she was born, we were in Orlando and then we felt like a shift and, we felt like God had opened an opportunity. So 2 months in, we moved to another state and we find ourselves like in a brand new season of life with a new life, then a new city, a new job, and then having to go back to work. And it was it was a whirlwind of things.
A lot.
That I felt just like surfaced a lot of emotions, challenges, having to like adapt. And I felt like that was postpartum. I don't think is talked about enough in how it affects marriage, but then like how just it affects like you as a mom. And so with some of those things came postpartum depression, and that was a scary monster. That is a very scary monster. And for someone who in the past has, persevered through challenging times and, okay, I got this. I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to continue. I'm going to focus on what I need to focus on. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I'm going to come out at the end on top. This was not that. Like there was very dark seasons where if it wasn't for the support, if it wasn't for the prayers, if it wasn't for like, let's just stay here in the dark and just be, like, I don't know how I would have come out on the other side. And I feel like there was moments that I did start therapy again during that season, thankfully. And, we would talk all the time and you'd be like, Steph, like, those thoughts are not okay. Like, let's be real and let's be raw. And there'd be moments that Jun, would have conversations on the side with you guys on like what was actually going on and trying to hold it all together and feel like you're not failing or that you're not present or you're emotionally unavailable is very difficult, even in marriage and in relationships. So the transition from parenthood, you know what I mean, to like how that affects how you feel like it affects your child and then how it affects your marriage, like is real. Yeah. It's tough. But I think that through all of this, thankfully, God has turned it around. And now we find ourselves back in the community that we feel like we needed in this season of life. And being able to be the best version of ourselves to reign and, to each other too. I think with any pivotal moment in our life, things are always going to surface, right? There's going to be things that we're going to find ourselves in that we maybe didn't prepare for, but it's how we kind of journey through that process and understanding that it may not be like it was before. And this is going to be a new season and a new territory, and sometimes you need new tools in your tool belt. Because you've never been there before. But just because you haven't been there before doesn't mean that you can't overcome that. Yeah. There is a new sharpening in your character. There is a new vision that you need. There is newness in that, There is some of the dusting of the old and the coming of the new. That's part of every season that I feel like that first couple of months really helped shape part of where we feel like we're going now,
That was really difficult to watch you guys go through that, but also like know that it was like you not being able to help like how you wanted to, because like you guys moved away and like the first like couple of months I was there probably like every month. Yeah, like I remember I stayed fly Lizzie out. Yes, I remember I would stay for like 11 days. Those are long yes, but like I would stay with the ring and I would help out, like because I know you guys didn't have someone to like take care of her, so it was like you guys were both like full time and so it was a lot. Like you guys were really busy, and then it's like seeing you also like you were not yourself, and like I remember like calling you and being like I'm really worried about stuff. Like, this is kind of serious. Like, I don't think that, like, it maybe just fly her out here and she stays here for a month and, like, we kind of, like, put her somewhere. Like, it was, like, but, like, because we were really worried about you.
Yeah,
and,
no,
like,
no options were off the table at that point.
No,
It
of
was like,
course.
I was like, where's the life jacket? Like,
Yeah.
someone throw a life jacket.
But I know that it's like you guys had obligations and you guys had, so it's like, how can you like take care of your mental health when like you still have to work all the, like, you know, you're a brand new parent, you're alone somewhere else. Like, if you guys don't take care of Rain, you know, then who will? And I know that you were like, during that season, you would tell me like, I'm just doing what I need to for Rain. Yeah. Like, I'm just doing like what I need to for the day, you know? Yeah. Like nothing extra. And I know for you too, it was kind of like trying, how was that for you supporting her?
Yeah, I was going to tap into that because I think what often sometimes doesn't get talked about is the male and, you know, what he takes away from it. Like, kind of like you mentioned, the option of kind of having her go with Rain and be out there. And like, I remember that first being brought up and I was like, what? Like, what about myself? You know, it's like, what is a man going through and things like that? Like, it was a tough time for me too, to see your best friend going through what she's going through and at times not even recognizing her, you know, in that dark time and trying to juggle that and bearing the responsibility, like, man, like, I'm the reason that we're out here, this opportunity that comes forth. And so trying to battle feelings of guilt and like, man, if we were to go back, things would be completely different right now. Like, God, did you really call me out here? Like, was I supposed to be out here? Like, was this too much? Was it my ambition that got the best of me? And so juggling all these thoughts and as a man, just wanting to care for her, not only provide, but also to bring forth nourishment to her, to my daughter, and to be there and to see the state that she was in and not be able to fix it. You know, being a man, we're naturally designed and wired to fix things. And so when you're looking at a situation like this and you're not able to, quote unquote, use those tools to just fix it, it's frustrating, you know? And so there's frustration that just comes forth. And we touched on community, and I know we're going to touch a little bit on that a little later, but just not having that community aspect, you know, having a community to be able to support you, having other men to be able to, hey, you know, bro, I've been through that. Like, we didn't have that, you know? And so I think community is one of those things that sometimes is taken for granted. But when you're in a season that we were in, understanding the importance of that community that is needed for each and every one of us. And so it was tough, man. It was very tough because naturally I tried to be very optimistic and things like that. But there were moments where like it was like moments of despair. It's like, I'm miserable. Like I remember, you remember that?
I remember that.
I was just like, I'm miserable here, you know. And sometimes you can be in an environment, you can be, you know, getting paid well, and but
like all the boxes are checked.
All the boxes are checked.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All the boxes are checked. You hit what you think is the next level or the mountaintop.
Right.
And then when you get to the mountaintop, you find out that it is not all that you think it is.
Yeah.
Or not all that you need it to be for you in that season.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I think there's a different level of maturity to come to understand that, all right, this is what I wanted, but this is actually not best for me.
Yeah.
There's a different level of maturity to say, you know what? I'm good. Not, you know, because in the eyes of everyone else, it probably looks good and is good.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a backside to every prayer that you pray, right?
The backside of the blessing.
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
backside of the blessing.
And people don't realize that with every, you know, prayer and every petition to God, that God may be like, okay, great, you want it. This is what you don't know about that. So I'm going to let you live through it so you can understand.
Yeah. Big facts.
Yeah.
Right? You know, but going through there and walking through that journey and then realizing, all right, you know what? This really isn't what is best for us. You know, it's not just, Lord, like open the door. It's, Lord, I also want to be where you are.
Yeah.
You know, and that may not be right now where I feel like I need to be. Mm-hmm. So change my heart so I know that I can be where you need me to be. You know,
and close the doors.
Or
end the season. Like maybe that's an ending to a season of whatever that's, you know, because we've talked about it. Like sometimes things that we go through, we still don't understand why we go through them.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of that stuff because I think that in the process of healing, right? Like we get to the place where we're like, in some things you get closure with yourself, right? Like you're like, you know, you accept things for how they are and everything. Some things we reconcile with people, right? And we're like, hey, like, you know, that close that chapter. And then there's a lot of things that we just are like, that was rough. And I still don't understand why I went through that. But it's still healing that you have to do, even if you don't ever get an answer to that. Good. Yeah. So I think that season for you guys, seeing it from the outside, it did feel like, you know, because I think it's like when something happens to someone in the family, it does affect everybody. Like it's people just think it's one person, but it's like, I know even things that I've walked through, it has affected you guys, you know, and things that you walked through and things that you walked through, you know? So it's like trying to support people through their journey, but also being like, God is using this in some way. We just don't know, you know, fully how. Yeah. But how you were saying about how hard it was for you and like between your marriage, like what are the kinds of things that were coming up with postpartum and even with you, like what things were you going through during that season too that were kind of like causing that friction, you know, that is hard because, you know, like you guys were married 5 years in, right? At that point. Yeah. So how did that look like?
It's like there are times where I just felt alone as well, you know. Again, not sometimes recognizing who my best friend is. Yeah. There are moments like it caused conflict even amongst us, and it's like you feel alone, you know, like that's how I can describe it.
Did you have
like,
people checking in on you, or you felt like, or were you open with people? Like
outside of family, I could probably maybe a mentor in state, like that was out of state, but where we were, no.
And did you feel like you just didn't have someone that would understand, or you just didn't feel like you had that place to be able to open up about stuff?
I tried. I think by nature, like I'm pretty transparent and I'm open, and unfortunately it was one of those things just like, okay, you know, but we have a job to do, you know. And that's when I began to recognize like, okay, it might be time to think about, you know, transitioning back because for me, I'm big on the health of someone more than what they can just do, you know? And so a lot of times, like, unfortunately, when it comes to corporate or jobs, wherever, you know, wherever you're doing, like, so long as you can produce, then fine. Like, how you doing? Good. But then it's like, are you really asking me how I'm doing? You know, because I'm going to open up. But a lot of people sometimes when they ask that question, it just comes by nature. But it's like, I don't know, being someone who I guess we would describe ourselves as empaths. And so when I think about that and just really genuinely caring for the well-being, like you just notice that not everyone has that level, you know? And so for me, I felt alone. I think that's the word that can kind of come from me.
Yeah. I think some of the feelings or emotions that, you know, kind of came up during that time for me was this immense amount of guilt. There's just so much guilt for what I felt like I couldn't do for Rain, what I felt like I couldn't do for you, what I felt like I couldn't do in my professional career. Some other feelings that came up is the imposter syndrome. Was definitely triggered. Sometimes it's easy to look at people and think that there is a level of confidence in what they do. And so a lot of the negative self-talk I feel like I had worked through in some of my like early 20s began to surface back up. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, where is all this coming from? definitely alone and I remember having this conversation with you one day that I was like, there were seasons in our lives that we journeyed through pain together. And because the offense or the hurt or the harm was to something we both were involved with, I felt like we both understood each other's pain. Mm-hmm. But this was the one time that I could think about in our marriage that you couldn't fully feel the pain that I was journeying through. I could try to help put the words together, but then the words weren't even a full definition or full context to what I was enduring. Mm-hmm. So in that season where you feel like they may have an understanding, but they can't feel the same level of pain. Not that you weren't in pain, because you were, but it was a little different. Mm-hmm. Who's the only person that can fully understand my pain today? Mm-hmm. And that's where I felt like I had, and again, coming around now is like understanding like I have to dig deeper roots. Yeah. In my foundation, mm-hmm. and someone who is going to understand my pain, and that person is Jesus. Mm-hmm. You know, and knowing that if I'm not secure and comfortable and established in him, mm-hmm. Jun is not the source of everything. Yeah. It's God. And I felt like that was something I had to like relearn mm-hmm. in that season. That my support, yeah, you guys are championing me on, right? But my journey is mine in Christ alone. Mm-hmm. So he's going to take you through some of these dark seasons. Mm-hmm. But sometimes those seasons of famine or despair or pain is to also point you right back to him. Mm-hmm. It's to show you that there isn't always another source. Mm-hmm. Some of the times I am all you need in that season, and that is all you need. Mm-hmm. You know, so in trying to fix it or in trying to overcome, I find a lot of the times that I just had to be there mm-hmm. in it. It wasn't in trying to bandage up the situation. It wasn't in trying to just, just fix it and turn it around and flip the page and here's the next chapter. It's like, no, I am walking through this day by day. Yeah. And I remember that there was a life coach, like my job had like this thing going on where it's like, oh, get healthy and exercise and like eat well. And you get all these points on this app and, whatever. So in one of those things, there was a free coaching session. Mm-hmm. And I was like, might as well talk to somebody. It's free. Mm-hmm. So I remember talking to this coach and she was like, and I was telling her, like, how are you feeling postpartum? Because they do like, oh, how's your life? Like, are there any stressors? Just, just basic information. And I was like, yeah, I just had a baby and I just moved to a new city and I just started to work again. And she's like, whoa. Like, that's a lot. Mm-hmm. She's like, let's talk about that a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm just failing at everything. I feel like I can't get anything done, is what I told her. And she's like, something I had to learn in my season when I was raising my girls young is I had to define what is enough for me today. Like, who's asking me to do all these things? It's just me. Yeah. So it's like, okay, let me define what is enough for me today. Right? And then God promised to just supply my needs. And that is enough. So it's like in that, all right, God, I need to reshift what I think is enough to what you are already providing. Yeah. Because this is enough for now. And there's grace in that.
I remember you told me that and I was like, she was speaking to your soul at that point. She was telling
life coach, you.
He said, yes, ma'am. Yeah. No, that's so good. And I know you guys have had your struggles and like figuring out kind of how this because this season, even though I know it's great because you have the community aspect and all of that, I know it has its own challenges, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you guys share, because I have a lot of people that ask, because we see online a lot of things, right? First, we see like the highlight reel of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one like fairy tale land. And then we see like the, oh my God, don't get married because everyone cheats on everybody and everything's horrible. And like, what is marriage even for, you know?
Yeah.
And so the middle ground of like that there is healthy marriages that they take work, but like it can be beautiful, you know, and there's still like hope for people, you know, that want that, you know? Mm-hmm. So can you guys share like how it's been, you know, because I talked about it from like a singles perspective, but like for you guys, do you feel like you've had to do a lot of your own personal work in marriage?
I would advise those who, you know, are in relationships or even singles is to do that work right now before you begin to do that work now before you jump into a relationship to do that work. And I say that because like I believe in our experiences that and things that we went through, you know, in our childhood and things like that, those things, if not dealt with, definitely carry over into your marriage. And so it's not like, oh, I do and everything just washes away. No, you're still dealing with these traumatic events that took place in your life, and now you're just with someone else who has traumatic experiences. And so you have these two people. And so you touched on two different extremes where everything looks bright and just perfect, which is just not true. And then where you see sometimes a lot where people who have either gone through a terrible breakup, all men ain't, you know, or all women ain't, you know. So two different pendulums and things like that, two different extremes. And so I think for us, it was working through those things.
Like what are things that you guys had to work through?
Yeah. So for example, for me, I would say growing up, I didn't get an example of what a healthy marriage looked like between my parents. I remember at an early age, my parents splitting up, separating twice, and then coming back to live together. And so for me, I found myself trying to be a peace keeper instead of a peacemaker. And so I would cry, I'd be upset. And so I would do anything at all possible when my dad was going to walk out just for them to be together because I wanted my family to be together. And so what I didn't understand at that time is that early on, I'm carrying these traits of being a peacekeeper. What 5-year-old should have to do those things? Now, I love my parents and they instilled a lot of value in me. But, you know, when I just look at their marriage, it just was not healthy. And so that carried on to every relationship in my life where I wanted to be liked. I wanted to keep peace at all costs, even if that meant diminishing myself or at my expense of my emotions and things like that. And it wasn't until later on when I began to start going to therapy and seeing that, hey, you know, peacekeeping, there's nothing good that comes from that. But if you're going to be a peacemaker, if at all costs you can try to make that peace, then that's good. And so there's a difference between keeping peace and making peace, because peacekeeping is you're going to do anything. You're going to, you know, out of desperation at the expense of yourself. And that's just not fair to you as an individual to try to keep peace with everyone. Like the Bible says that with all that you can do, try to have peace. But, you know, there's some people, unfortunately, that it's just not going to work out that way. And so that was definitely something. I also grew up in a home, a very strict home. My parents are from the islands, from Haiti. And so anyone who knows how it is sometimes growing up in a Caribbean home is that it was very strict, you know. I salute my parents. Like, they came over here. They had nothing in their name. My dad came over here to the States in the 80s, and my mom came. They came from nothing. And so they built that foundation. I'm the first generation born here in the States, and so I'm thankful for that. But also with that, there's also pressures that come with that. And so I learned early on how to perform as well. And so it's like, so long as you're doing good, you're making good grades, or you're doing good in school, it's like, all right, you're so smart, you're this, you're that. And so early on, I knew, okay, if I do what they want, then I'm going to be accepted and liked. But the moment that I mess up, a whipping comes behind that. And so it instills that fear, you know? And so that carries on, because it's like, okay, now I want to people please.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with people pleasing, you're dealing with peacekeeping and things like that. And so that carried on to my relationship, because we would go at it sometimes And there was times that I wasn't wrong. But, you know, but, and so like I'm not saying you don't apologize when you're not wrong. Like, I think, you know, a sign of maturity is apologizing, but I would find myself at times like chasing her, when she was upset. And I had to learn that, listen, it's okay if Stephanie's not okay, but you have to be okay. And so I would do things at all costs to try to keep that peace, even at the expense of myself. Like, if something was wrong and she was avoiding, like, and she was remaining silent, like, I'm just like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it right now. But it's like learning over the years that, hey, like, if she doesn't want to talk about it, then that's okay. But June has to be okay, even if Steph isn't. Yeah. But what would help me is if Stephanie would say, hey, I don't want to talk about this right now, but I'll give you a time. We can talk about this later. Yeah. And so that would definitely help me. And so doing those things helped me tremendously in our relationship. So, yeah.
Some of the distrust. So growing up, it was a lot of, you can't trust anybody and everyone has bad intentions. And so with that came just, you know, a lot of that struggle that, you know, I don't trust fully. And I didn't trust before I met him. So I'm not going to trust him in it. And trust is part of not just, you know, having someone show you that they're integral, but also you choosing to trust. Like, there's a level of choice there. And so understanding that. I think secondly was that within conflict resolution, I stonewalled and I gave the silent treatment. And so if someone did not, or what I learned growing up is that if someone didn't behave the way that you wanted them to, you would isolate them and you were emotionally unavailable. So that translated into my relationship, because when I made a mistake as, you know, as a teen or as a child growing up, you know, there was a level of isolation. There was, you know, that stonewalling that took place. And, you know, I'm not going to talk to you or I'm not going to be available to you because you made me upset. And therefore came a level of believing that I was in charge or responsible for someone else's feelings. And that's not correct. You know, I don't make you feel any certain way. You chose to feel that way. And so understanding those kinds of things early on in our relationship were very difficult, you know, seasons. It was, you know, and challenging seasons. But thankfully we've learned that I think we're both flawed. And that within that you give grace. You know, it's like, I'm not as good as I think I am. And he's not as good as maybe he thinks he is.
But we're also not as bad as we think we are either.
Correct.
And so you touched on something when you said the silence. Yeah. And that was big for me because that's what my dad would do.
Right.
So if I did something that he didn't like me or he didn't like, he would just kind of stonewall. And there I go as myself trying to fix the situation.
So, like, the first couple of years, it was just touching all the wrong buttons.
Pushing all the trigger buttons.
All the triggers. Because we just don't know.
Because you think you know a lot from like the time that you're dating, and then you're like, I know that's what everyone says. They're like, oh no, I know each other so well, and then it's like, well, I hear from like a lot of friends that are married. It's like a whole different person once you're like living and doing life. Like it just looks so different. Because I think about like stuff with myself, like even with you guys, right? Like you guys probably know me like the most because you guys have seen me in all seasons at like the highs and the lows, you know? And so for someone to get to see you in that rawness, it's like they have to do like real life with you, which takes time and years, you know? It doesn't just come from like when you're going on a cute like ice cream date or like you're doing something like really casual. No, it's like through hard stuff that you walk through. That's how you're able to see like the character and the flaws in someone.
And I believe people are always evolving. So the Steph that I met in 2013 is different than the Steph in 2023. And so you get married, it's you live with someone, you're going to definitely see other things about them, things that make you tick. And what do you like to say? Give you the ick. So you see those things, but at the same time, it's like this person is growing and evolving as well. And so giving each other that grace. And so that's something that is daily. And it's something, it's a continual thing. It's a continual process. Like, I think we're all growing, we're all evolving, we're all learning. And so giving each other that grace to be able to do so.
I remember that there was one time, I don't remember if it was one of our counseling sessions that we had to do, or if it was before we got actually married. We had to do a genogram. So in the genogram, if you haven't done it, oh my gosh, do it, but preface, it's heavy.
Emotionally healthy spirituality.
Yeah, we learned it through that book, and you had to write all of like what they define as the earthquakes in your life. So what are those pivotal moments in life that caused some of the trauma? And what was the language or the narrative behind that? So whether it was divorce, or if there was infidelity, or if there was anger, or if you had to move, or if there was abuse, or if there was whatever, like you map it out in your family tree. And when I saw mine and my narrative, I was like, ooh, that's heavy. Like generation after generation, I see depression, I see isolation, I see A, B, C, D. But then when I look at his, I'm like, wow, you are also broken. Like, you come from a broken line. Like, that is humbling, because sometimes you feel like that within your world, in your context, like, you don't know where I came from, but then you get to understand where someone else comes from. And in that, there's so much more grace given. Because you understand and see my pain. And maybe you didn't live through it, but you understand it. You know?
And not assuming the worst in someone. I think that's another thing that has helped. Like, not assuming the worst in Steph, but putting on a posture of curiosity instead of one of critique, and really questioning and being curious about things instead of assuming, because we never feel the unknowns with positives. We feel the unknowns with negatives. And so that is daily, even my relationships outside of my marriage, you know, assuming the best in people. And so that has been something that I have had to practice.
It's true. It's like those are things that you like learn throughout, and like you also getting to know and work through your stuff. I feel like that's how I see it. It's like, I know we still, even no matter your relationship status, it's still so important to be aware and to work on certain things that we have and like our family line, seeing, because like we can be the change of those generational things, because we can be the difference to stop those patterns that we have seen throughout our parents or grandparents, you know, and even in the, I know we talked about this, like the language that we talk around each other. It's like us being peacemakers, you know, and also navigating conflict, because instead of stonewalling or checking ourselves, you know, or being accountable to each other, like different things like that show up now versus what we saw growing up. Was the hardest thing that you guys have experienced married, would you say was more the postpartum versus like the first few years?
It's different.
I think it's just a different level of pain. If you know us, you've probably heard, you know, our story. If not, you can check it out on our podcast, Moments with the Marcelins, where we
Episode
share a little
3.
bit about that.
Season 1.
And that was an earthquake moment, I think, for the both of us. But I feel like this was a different monster. And you don't know until you journey through it.
If I could even say that there was beauty in it. Beauty marks. See what I did there?
Wow. Look at
telling you, man, when you become a dad, these dad jokes just roll off. Oh my
you should have worn the shirt. Yesterday he was wearing a shirt that said beauty. I was like,
I stained it.
And you stained
it.
I was like, you could have worn it today.
One of the things I would find the beauty in this was the fact that, at least in this one, it felt like we were together. You know, like it was us against this. And even there were moments where like you felt alone and I felt alone, like because those moments do come.
Yeah.
Like what was different is with this one, it's like, okay, it's us against the world, baby, you know? And so that was definitely something that was different prior to previous experiences where it was just like you versus me.
Yeah. Because of like issues that or how you hurt each other.
Yeah.
Because like you're trying to support to get out of that.
Yeah.
And so what encouragement do you have for couples that are going through like postpartum or those hard like challenges?
I think whether it be postpartum, whether it be just issues for singles, my biggest advice is community. Community. If you can, I would encourage you to do therapy. I'm pro therapy. I see a counselor. I think it's one of the best things that has happened in my life. I wish I would have gone earlier. I wish I would have gone when my dad passed away when I was 20. However, I want to preface this, but I preface that all to say I know that therapy is also a luxury as well, and not everyone can afford it. And so just healthcare just in America is just not the best. And so for those who are viewing or listening and you probably cannot afford therapy right now, my advice to you, whether you be married, single, in a relationship, and you're just dealing with tough times, would be to find a healthy community of people who want to see you win, people who genuinely care for you. And so for me, in every season of my life where I've gone through challenges, I feel like if you have both, hey, that's even better, you know? Like if you can get both, you can. But for those who can't, because I want to be sensitive to those who may not be able to afford that, like find that healthy community of people who challenge you, who see your blind spots, who are real with you, who love you and want to see you win. And they ask you those tough questions and they don't just settle for things that are shallow, but they really challenge you to be better. You need that community. Like we're not meant to fight alone. We're not meant to do this thing called life by ourselves, but with a community of people, we need to make sure that we do that. And so community is what has helped us. Community in the moments where we weren't in therapy, like community is what has been that foundation to assist us. And so that would be my encouragement, and do that work. Like I know, like I've said that before, but continue to do that work. Like right now, the season that you're in right now is such a beautiful season because it's like you're going to be so much better version of yourself when you do enter that relationship, and for anyone else who is single than you would have been had you not done that work. You know, I probably, how old was I when I started therapy? 26. Like 26. So like if I would have known and tapped into those resources, maybe some things we in those journeys we don't even have to necessarily go through. I'm thankful for those things because it helped us. Yeah. But man, if I can avoid it and learn from someone else's story, why not? You know, like
you don't have to repeat the
right.
Same
like
thing.
People say this saying, experience is the best teacher. I couldn't disagree more. Like, no, it is not. Like if I can learn from someone else's mistake, and that can help me get to where I need to get to quicker and avoid all these things. That's wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge applied. And so it's like, if I can learn, and that's what we have done, like with mentors like that have gone through a journey before. It's like, okay, I don't have to avoid that. So I'm saving a few years from not going through those same mistakes that, that they went to. And so, just finding those mentors, finding that healthy community, it goes without saying, but my having your solid foundation and relationship with Jesus as well.
That's a really big part of like our journey. It's like that community aspect, because I know you had talked about like the isolation. Literally, I think I sent you the post of like that men, like I think it's like 61% of men are like feeling lonely. Like that's a huge thing with like when you think about like having a brotherhood and all of that, like women, we still struggle with that, but I think we men have a higher, a stronger issue with that, you know, of finding their people, finding their community. So it's like, it's so important to have that, to have a place where you can talk to people, share your experiences, like from people that have gone through that, like, or like a couple maybe that like would have been like, man, I know exactly where you're at, you know? And now you guys, like, I know you guys are still in your process, but I know one day like you'll be able to share like your full story that I know will help someone. And so thank you guys for your vulnerability like today, you know, and just being a part of it.
Yes.
And would you like to say any encouragement to someone that's just like working through some things?
Yeah, I think as heavy as the days may be, understanding that every season has a start and a finish is sometimes the hope that you need to continue to push forward. To the mom, first time mom, going through that journey, it is okay to ask for help because you're helping a lot of people. And it's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. You know, so knowing that the seasons that we find ourselves in, there is a season of winter that sometimes we have to go through. But after winter comes spring. So you will bloom again. You will grow again. It'll be different. But you will.
That's good. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for sharing. And I know that this is just a little part of it.
Yeah.
We could talk for a lot longer.
We can.
But, you know, I think that you shared some things that I know a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to like postpartum challenges as like a man and as a mom. I know you guys are in a new season, and I'm really happy that you guys are back and like here, and just very, very proud of you guys for being able to I know you guys still have so much to give, and I can't wait for you guys to be back on the pod.
Absolutely. So for now, just tune in to the older episodes. You can find us on YouTube as well, Moments with the Marcelins, and we can't wait to be back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having us today. Honestly, It's been a pleasure.
Of course.